All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Virtual CAAM. My name is Alexsandra Mitchell. I'm the Manager of Education and Public Programs at the California African American Museum. And we'd like to thank you for joining us and taking a bit of your evening and time away to have a bit of respite, enjoy some creativity and live dialogue for what is sure to be a very special evening with a group of brilliant, and incredible women. And so this evening, you have joined us, as you know, for a live recording of the Sunstorm podcast, which is an audio salon hosted by two of America's leading organizers, Alicia Garza and Ijin Poo, who talk to their friends and sheroes about how women stay powerful and joyful amidst the chaos of life in America today, which we are not at a short for at the moment. This episode is presented in conjunction with Sanctuary, recent acquisitions to the permanent collection, and features Sanctuary exhibiting artist Sadie Barnette, who we love at CAAM. I'd like to extend a very special thank you to Rebecca Lehrer and Shelby Sandlin for all their hard work in making today happen. It's really been a pleasure working with them and the team at Sunstorm to make tonight possible for you all. I'd like to, of course, introduce tonight's guest. Sadie Barnette's work embodies collective and familial histories, acts of celebration, resistance, but is not tethered to otherworldly, offering glittering speculative spaces. Unconfined to a particular medium, her modular and iterative practices hold the poetics and politics of city space and the living room. Recent projects include the reclamation of a 500-page FBI surveillance document, amassed on her father during his time as a Black Panther Party activist, and her interactive reimagining of his bar, San Francisco's first Black gay-owned bar. Born and raised in Oakland, California, she earned her BFA from Cal Arts and her MFA from the University of California, San Diego. Her work has been exhibited throughout the United States and internationally, and is in the permanent collections of museums such as LACMA, CAAM, the Brooklyn Museum, the Guggenheim, and Studio Museum in Harlem, where she also was an artist in residence. Ijin is the Executive Director of National Domestic Workers Alliance and Co-Director of Caring Across Generations. She is an award-winning activist, organizer, thought leader, and social innovator, and a leading voice in domestic workers' rights and family care advocacy. In 2019, along with Alicia Garza, Cecil Richards, Ijin co-founded Superior Majority, a new home for women's activism, training, and mobilizing a multicultural intergenerational community that will fight for gender equity together. Ms. Poo's numerous accolades include recognition among Apolitical's top 100 most influential people in gender equality global policy, Fortune 50's World's Greatest Leaders, Time 100's Most Influential People in the World, and as a World Economic Forum Young Global Leader. She has been the recipient of countless awards, which she's much deserving of course, including the 2014 MacArthur Genius Award, the Open Society Institute New York City Community Fellowship, and the Woman of Vision Award for the Miss Foundation for Women. She has been featured at the United States Women Summit, Aspen Ideas Festival, Obama Foundation Summit, and Women's Convention, She's been an influential voice in the Me Too movement and participated in the Time's Up action at the 2018 Golden Globes. Her work has been featured in many publications, including Marie Claire, the New York Times, Washington Post, Time, Glamour, and CNN.com. She is a trustee of For Foundation and MoveOn.org, and the author of The Age of Dignity, Preparing the Elder Boom in a Changing America. Last but not least, I'd like to introduce Alicia, who is an Oakland-based organizer, writer, public speaker, and freedom dreamer, who is currently the Strategy and Partnerships Director for the National Domestic Workers Alliance, the nation's leading voice for dignity and fairness for the millions of domestic workers here in the US. Garza, along with Opal Tometi and Patrice Cullors, also co-founded the Black Lives Matter Network, a global recognized organizing project that focuses on combating anti-Black state-sanctioned violence and the oppression of all Black people. Since the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement, Garza has been a powerful voice in the media. Her articles and interviews have been featured in Time, Make, The Guardian, Elle.com, Essence, Democracy Now!, and the New York Times. In addition, her work has received numerous recognitions for being named among the Roots 2016 list of 100 African-American achievers and influencers, the 2016 Glamour Woman of the Year Award, 2016 Marie Claire Newgard Award, and as a community change agent at the 2016 Black Girls Rock Awards, which we all very much love. Most important, as a Black queer woman, Garza's leadership and work challenged the misconception that only cis Black men encounter police and state violence, while the tragic deaths of Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown were catalysts for the emergence of the Black Lives Matter movement. Garza is clear: in order to truly understand how devastating and widespread this type of violence is in Black America, we must view this epidemic through a lens of race, gender, sexual orientation, and gender identity. So without taking up too much more time, I would like to turn the conversation over to our esteemed guest for the evening, and thank you all.
All right. Thank you so much, Alexsandra. Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for hosting Sunstorm at CAAM. I'm Ijen Hu.
And I'm Alicia Garza, and welcome to Sunstorm. Thanks everybody for being here or there or wherever you are, because hello, quarantine. We're all on Rona quarantine, and it's right in the middle of Rona and rebellion. This is totally a strange time, but we're still grateful to be gathered how and when and where we can. So thanks for joining us tonight.
We want to start by telling you a little bit about Sunstorm, in case you don't know. Sunstorm is our podcast that was inspired by this weather pattern that's common to parts of the South and the Midwest. And it is called a sunstorm. And it's basically when the rain is pouring down. It's a storm outside. And somehow in the middle of the storm, the sun is still shining through at the same time. Alicia and I were talking in the middle of a sunstorm that she was experiencing about how we in this country are living through a sunstorm right now, where there's so much craziness and crises around us. So many of the things that we hold dear are under attack. And there's also joy and courage and love and people rising up and taking action in new ways that are about claiming our country and our future and our freedom, our dreams. So Sunstorm is all about how we support each other to keep shining through these intense times. And we're so happy to be here and to be talking to Sadie and to be partnering with CAAM, because if anything, art and incredible artists like Sadie are the sun in our storm. So let's get going.
Let's do it. So I'm super excited about this conversation tonight. And what's real is that we are all in a fight for our lives right now. For some of us, that has been true for a hot minute. But in this moment of Rona, rebellion, recession, right, and crisis in our democracy, there is no better time to figure out how to find your lane and do your part. And while you're finding your lane, remembering to live life and have some joy while we do it.
Finding your lane is super important to us right now. So relevant. It feels like there's an impossible amount to do all the time, even when we're stuck in our own homes. And to me, finding my lane means knowing that I don't have to do all the things all the time, but I do have to do something. And that something can actually be really meaningful and bring a lot of joy. And that it has to be something that really speaks to me, that teaches me, that helps me offer the best of me to making our world and our country better. I've personally always been passionate about organizing women of color, especially caregivers. What is it for you, Alicia? What are you passionate about?
You know, for me, I am passionate about Black people being powerful in every aspect of our lives. I'm passionate about Black people being powerful in politics so that we can be powerful in every aspect of our lives. And finally, I'm really passionate about changing what's happening in this country right now. I think our world depends on it. I think our families depend on it. And frankly, our humanity depends on it. So that's what gets me out of bed every single day, even when I don't really feel like I want to. I think about the things that I'm passionate about. I think about my purpose. I think about what drives me, and out of bed I go to go and get it once again during the day.
Yes, you do. I love that. So we really are so excited to bring out the amazing Sadie, who is joining our pod today, brilliant artist, and has found an incredible lane. If we were at the physical museum together, she would be walking out and we'd have a big dramatic reveal. But here she is. She's right here with us. We're so excited. Welcome, Sadie Barnette.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be in conversation with both of you. I have said it before and I will say it again. I am so honored.
Oh, we're so honored to have you. And you are such an inspiration to both of us. We love your work so much. And in some ways, your work is the embodiment of Sunstorm. There's so much joy and beauty and glitter in your work. And it's in the context of deep and profound histories of pain and injustice and all of it. Right. And so it's really, really special and an honor for us to be able to talk to you today. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we were talking, you know, in the green room, and Sadie actually came out on the cover of an incredible book today. So Sadie, do you want to say just a couple of quick words about that and your piece on that cover?
I would love to. Yes, today is the book birthday for both of our homegirl in common. Melissa Valentine wrote a beautiful, heart-breaking, heart-filling memoir titled The Names of All the Flowers. And I was lucky enough to create a new artwork for her book cover. And I have to say it was one of the most easy, natural collaborations because I just so deeply felt her vision and perspective from the book. And because of the overlap in history that we share, it was deeply meaningful to create that book for her. So I hope that everyone can participate in, sharing her turning something really painful into something quite beautiful and profound. So buy the book. It's pretty and it's beautiful and you will be moved.
Fantastic. So let's dive in, shall we? Aijen, why don't you tee up the first question?
Yeah, well, maybe you could give us a little bit of a sense, like a snapshot of your history and how you found your lane as an artist. And a lot of people looking at your art might actually call you an activist too, but you identify as an artist. So tell us a little bit about art, activism, and your identity.
Sure. So, as mentioned, I was born and raised in Oakland, California, such a special place that in no small way is a part of who I am and how I move through the world. I was raised mostly by my mother. My mother is an amazing person. Anyone who knows me knows that she's my best friend. And, people that know her, she might be their best friend too. She just has such a generous spirit and light in the world. And, when I was growing up in the Bay, I had a really hard time in school. I had a hard time learning to read. I was diagnosed as dyslexic, and my challenges continued on to high school. Outside of school, I was really equipped with this like amazing political education. And so I saw in my high school all these things, injustices and inequities that I was learning about reflected in the school. So from school to prison pipeline, the tracking system, teachers who were afraid of students, underfunded classrooms. I just really wasn't having any part of it. And so I actually dropped out of high school. And my mom, instead of killing me, somehow found an independent study program through the public school. And under that structure, I was able to flourish, and I was able to find my voice and to start to find my lane, right? So I was able to really do two things. I was able to start really doing community organizing, which, I don't know why I thought that would be easier than just going to high school like a normal person. But I was involved with an organization called Let's Get Free at the time out of Ella Baker Center. Like this
Oh
is
my God.
going way back to like early 2000s, Proposition 21 campaign. We were working on getting really brutal, like specific police that had like a name for themselves. They call themselves the Riders, trying to get them out of our North Oakland neighborhood. I was going to schools and doing workshops about the prison industrial complex. Again, I don't know why I thought this was easier than just going to school, but it was, you know, it was what was inspiring me at the time. And the other thing that I was able to do at that independent study program was spend 8 hours a day in the dark room. So this woman, Skylar Fishman, for whatever reason, gave me a camera at this time. And so I would walk around with my like Nikon F, taking, you know, film photographs and spending all my time in the dark room. And it was really, you know, I think it was because of my time in organizing that when I transitioned into really saying, okay, art is where my gifts really come together. It's really where I can shine. It's where I feel the most comfortable, a little bit behind the scenes, but also gave me this huge respect for activism and on the ground organizing, like the real labor that goes into that. So I can talk, you know, a little bit more about that, but I think also, you know, growing up, knowing that my father was involved with a, you know, really deep lineage of activism was really important to me. It wasn't something that he talked about a lot. He didn't really, you know, wear it on his sleeve or walk around with like a former Panther button on, right? It was just one of the many things that was a part of his life, as well as working with Angela Davis to win her freedom, surviving the Vietnam War, just coming from like a big, amazing, special family and just all of the multifaceted, you know, parts of being who he was. And both of my parents throughout their working lives really dedicated themselves to workers' rights. They actually met in a liquor bottling factory called Hubline out in Menlo Park that just closed down about 10 years ago. And they were very involved in the union there. It was ILWU union. And that's really how they met, was like through that struggle. So, you know, it's in my genes. I got it honest, and I just am invested in telling these stories.
Oh my gosh. Listen, you just like took me through half of my like childhood growing up in the Bay all the way until the present. This was dope. I'm like, let's get free. That's amazing. I think I still have some of the calendars from the Underground Railroad, so, which was an artist collective here in Oakland. So Sadie, speaking of Oakland, I'm not born and raised here, but I like to say that I'm a lifelong resident. And, you know, for me, the Bay, though, where I am born and raised, is really home. It is my sanctuary. It's the place where I feel the most safe. It's the place where I feel the most myself. This whole exhibit is about sanctuary. It's about kind of, you know, really kind of rooting in safe space. And I know over the last few years, you know, safe space has become a contested term. I have my own feelings about that. But I'm curious for you, as a creator and as an artist, what does sanctuary represent for you? And how are you portraying that through your work?
Yeah, I think, I mean, first of all, let me just say Oakland definitely claims you. So there's that. And yeah, I mean, I think, you know, ultimately sanctuary, like real sanctuary would be a world that we don't need to escape from, right? But until we get there, I think sanctuary looks like a lot of things. I think in my work, I hope that it's providing like a space to dream, space for abstraction, space to think about the future, and spaces for love, really. You know, I think in this time, sanctuary sometimes looks just like the like group WhatsApp chat, like with the homies and trying to like bounce memes and songs back and forth to get us through these times. And I think, you know, I think it's important to mention like really specifically what the world is that I am, envisioning when I'm talking about the world that in which we wouldn't need to escape from. I feel like, as an artist who's working in this weird landscape of contemporary art, it is important to sometimes just come out about the radicality of the world that I'm actually envisioning, So just to kind of break it down, it's like dismantling capitalism as we know it, a redistribution of assets, it's anti-imperialism, it's an international agenda from, Palestine to Brazil. It's, coming from the Bay, it's like decommodifying housing. It's having some things that are not for sale, like health and dignity. It's, it's not just thinking like, I want a new president, but I want an entirely new system, and really coming out and saying like, I'm an abolitionist. I am not a Democrat. I have not seen my politics, really reflected in any like mainstream politicians or, major institutions. And that's okay, because, it's our job to be ahead of where those spaces are maybe ready to be at. But I do see this vision very much reflected in the work of activists and scholars like y'all, like Angela Davis, Ruth Wilson Gilmore, Patrice, of course. It's like the vision is crystal clear, and y'all are doing so much work. And that's the kind of world building that I hope that my work, allows space to dream about. I hope that it provides refuge and maybe reflection for folks who are doing that organizing and activist work, and kind of saying, if my work is honoring generations' work that have come before, y'all's work will be honored by the next generations, and your work will not be forgotten, even when the next generation, hopefully runs with it. So those are the kinds of, dreams that I put under my pillow when I'm thinking about sanctuary.
I love that.
I love how much intergenerational storytelling is just a part. It's like coming out of every cell in your body. It's like you're talking about your family, you're talking about your mom and your dad. Your art is about revealing histories that have deep roots in your family across generations. And I'm just wondering if you could speak a little bit more about why that intergenerational connection and storytelling is so important to you.
Yeah, I think, I guess it kind of feels like my inheritance, it feels like my duty and an honor really to just share those stories and shine light on that intergenerational conversation, and also just seeing how connected everything is, right? So I guess, maybe for folks maybe who don't know that much about the specific project, I think there's these, two projects that really highlight this. One is the reclamation of this 500-page FBI file that was amassed on my father during his time with the Black Panthers, and later working with Angela Davis. And I think, a lot of times when we hear surveillance file, it sort of sounds kind of passive or innocuous, like it's just somebody taking notes, but it's actually much more than surveillance. It's harassment, intimidation, it's fomenting of political and personal disputes within the party. It's, harassing family members, it's agent provocateurs, it's, it's a lot. So when I first was confronted with this file, which, my family together, we filed a Freedom of Information Act request in 2011. And it wasn't until 2015 that we actually got this dossier of documents. And it was chilling, it was enraging, it was terrifying. I felt so protective retroactively for like my young father. I realized that I was so lucky that he was alive, in all honesty. Like he was lucky to make it out of that moment. So many folks didn't. so many folks are still incarcerated because of that work. And so I felt like I just had to reclaim this information in whatever way I could to somehow, sage it and turn it into something that could be used to empower my father and to tell his story and to tell the story of so many families. And so, materially, that's looked like a lot of different things, from photographs to prints and drawings directly from the FBI file pages themselves, to drawing like J. Edgar Hoover's signature, to creating wallpapers, really bringing my family and these domestic spaces into these like state surveilled environments, and always in a conversation between my generation and that generation. And not always necessarily a simple conversation. Sometimes there's some questions that can't be answered. Sometimes there's some complicated feelings, but just leaving space for that to happen. And I think the other project that kind of bookends that is at a few years later in my father's life, a couple decades later, he opens the first Black-owned gay bar in San Francisco. And that is really in response to the racism that him and his community, his friends, were experiencing at the white gay bars in San Francisco. And I feel like, to some people, they might be surprised, like, oh, racism in the queer community. And to other people, they're very much not surprised at all. So, eye roll, insert eye roll here. But this bar, it was an amazing space. It was a family-run business. It was a place where people showed their talents, where they, raised awareness and resources around the AIDS crisis, celebrated Black holidays. I can go on and on about the bar itself, but I think, doing this program in conjunction with CAAM, it's like we all realize the importance of these Black spaces to do the work, and also to recover from the work, and to restore and to celebrate ourselves and each other. So when I was approaching that project, I knew that I couldn't just make an artwork about the bar. I had to make an artwork that really was the bar, and bend the space-time continuum and bring the bar to life and have it be alive. So I actually built a bar, like a big U-shaped bar with bar stools and a neon sign and glitter lounge seats and, ephemera relating to the first bar, and then was able to invite a lot of people to collaborate, to dance, and just be in community and be together. And it was amazing to see my friends and my father's friends really coming together in this intergenerational queer space, which I feel like doesn't often happen in queer spaces for, a lot of reasons that make sense. So yeah, that's really the way that I am just following, following the stories and trying to just attend to what they need through my authorship.
I have so much to say on this. First of all, yes. Second of all, yes. And third of all, the thing that I'm just sitting here processing, Sadie, is you talk a lot about writing yourself into history. And as you told that story, I was thinking a few things. One, so often the ways in which our movements, right, get reflected back to us is such a narrow, two-dimensional way of talking about how change happens, who is changed in the process, and also I think just who we are and what we stand for. I know that certainly happens in Black Lives Matter. It's happened in almost every movement I've ever been a part of or been honored to learn about. And, it's not lost on me that you have said that your father was a member of the Black Panther Party in Compton, and operated and owned the first Black-owned queer bar in San Francisco. And that is not a story that we hear in relationship to the Black Panther Party. And as an Oakland lover, I'm a deep historian. And what I know about the Black Panther Party, what I know about Huey Newton is like he did a lot of speeches, right, about queer liberation that people don't ever talk about. And so, I mean, just to like bring all of these things together, like I'm just curious to hear your perspective on how is it that you are able to write yourself into history in a context where so much of our history gets written and regurgitated back to us in a way that kind of reinforces the exact power imbalances that those movements were created to disrupt and destroy? How do you navigate that landscape as an artist?
Yes, that is, I think, you know, the way that I think of it is like this flattening that happens of history and of movements and of figures that become these icons and can become like these, you know, two-dimensional kind of archetypes, right? So I think a lot of people think of like, oh, Black Panther, it's like this one way of being, it's this super macho way of being, you know. The Black Panthers were really sexist, which to me like erases the fact that most of the Black Panthers doing work were women. And I think there's, you know, I think there's a lot of work that's to be done both by like, you know, the haters and the people who love and up to and admire the legacy of the Panthers in really allowing like full humanity of people and lives to be kind of re-inflated into those archetypes, because people are always more than one thing, and nobody is perfect and nobody is like, you know, just a character in a movie, right? And so when I'm trying to, you know, add these stories to the archives and also acknowledging that, you know, there's never going to be a complete and full history, you know. I know because I don't see my dad's story, you know, being reflected. You know, the Eagle Creek, so that was the name of the bar, was the New Eagle Creek Saloon. You know, it's not in the, you know, queer history documentaries. It's not like being studied by grad students. And so my project with that was really to create its own archive, right? Like when you're not in the archives, you create your own archives. And also holding space for the fact that there's so many other spaces like the Eagle Creek, which, you know, we don't know the names of, and always holding space for, you know, the unnamed and the unknowable. And, you know, it's funny, my dad actually said a really nice thing about the history. And he said, you know, when you read the history books, you don't have to see your name there, but you just want to know that you were there and you were a part of it. And I loved like his way of looking at that. You know, it's not that he needs to see his name in lights. It's just that he wants to know that he was there. And so many people were there who's, you know, who didn't maybe go on to have a career in politics or in academia, but were just, you know, regular people showing up, which is really so much of what like a big movement is gonna look like.
Yeah, it's so timely for right now too, because our movements are full of everyday people who are making choices to rise up and to take action and to be a part of making history instead of being a bystander or an observer as history unfolds. Like these movements that are changing the course of history are full of everyday people like your dad. And I think everybody's just in this process of trying to figure out what's the best way for me to be a part of, what's the best way to know that I was there in the way that I should have been there, right? Everyone's grappling with that question. So I'm curious how you think about that for yourself, and what might your dad say to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as, you know, finding your way of participating, I think it's like the most you can let yourself be yourself. That's how you're going to do the best that you can do. And when you asked a little bit earlier about, you know, how I identify as like artist versus activist, to just elaborate on that a little bit, you know, because I saw what went into on the ground organizing, I just, I feel like that work, that behind the scenes work of, you know, fundraising and meetings and, you know, deciding attainable targets and making maybe uncomfortable alliances and building out the email list and all of this stuff that's like real work. You know, that's not what I spend my days doing. And so I just don't identify as I'm an activist, even though obviously like I am working towards a better world. It's not through community organizing right now, it's through my voice as an artist. And that's because I'm better at that. And I think I can be more useful there. You know, I think also trying to paint, you know, a more dimensional picture about what that work looks like. You know, when I think about like in this particular moment, you know, and what has been done since like, you know, Black Lives Matter, you know, since y'all synthesized this hashtag into a movement, you know, in the years between then and now, so much work was done so that in this moment, when a bit more of mainstream attention is being paid, you know, the websites are ready, the donate buttons are ready, the alliances are ready, and that is like real organizing and work. It's not just showing up at rallies and giving speeches and, you know, posting on Instagram. It's like real work. And I think similarly, you know, for artists, a lot of times people outside of the field don't necessarily know the labor and work that goes into being an artist, right? So it's not all just being in the studio, you know, waiting for inspiration and making pictures. It's a lot of like reading contracts and balancing bank accounts and applying for grants and arranging shipments. And so, you know, maybe it's because my parents were, you know, in the labor movement that I always think about the hidden labor that goes into things. And so as far as like, you know, finding my voice and then trying to just believe in it and run fiercely in the direction of it, you know, I think that's how it all comes together.
Oh, well, we are so grateful that it's all coming together. And if you haven't seen Sadie's work, you need to run, not walk, to sadiebarnette.com to check out Sadie's work. Also, you know, if our museums open and stay open, go and see it in person and like literally do what I did when I got to see Sadie's work at the Oakland Museum of California. I took myself on a date and I literally sat cross-legged on the floor in front of these incredible installations and just took deep breaths. So if you want to do what I did, go to sadiebarnette.com and check out all of Sadie's incredible work. So I got another question, which is, you know, you are somebody who I think is creating sanctuary in so many incredible ways. You know, one of the things I loved about Melissa's book cover is that you really recreate the shrines that have, you know, permeated Oakland in places where people have been murdered and places where people have been lost. And those shrines are incredibly painful, but there is also joy in them. Sometimes you see teddy bears or, you know, pictures where the person was joyful and they were in community and with family. I guess my question for you is like, where do you find sanctuary? And, you know, where do you find joy in the midst of what is just hard times, frankly? I mean, again, Rona, rebellion, recession, a crisis in democracy. I mean, we're in the midst of it. But to get out of bed every day, we got to find some kind of inspiration. So where do you find sanctuary and where do you find your joy?
Yeah, you know, I think I put the joy and the hope really into the work, into my work, so that I can lean on it when I don't feel those things. You know, when I don't feel joyful or when I don't feel hopeful, it's like the work is aspirational, and something that I can lean on. I mean, thinking about Melissa's book cover, you know, we all had the idea like to create, you know, one of these street memorials that kind of, you know, impromptu grow and gather around our fallen ones. And I knew that I wanted it to be on a pink wall. I knew that I wanted it to have these, you know, glittered elements that come directly out of my work, as well as some specific things that really pointed to her brother. So there's like the Remy bottle. And I wanted to also have that voice of like the little sister come through, you know, which is also a tactic that I've taken in my work with regards to the FBI file, which is like, you know, how can I find power in this, you know, young girl thinking about her father, and kind of like moving us back in time and thinking about, you know, using this like pink, what might be considered frivolous, like I call it like a femme performative play, because to me it's not like this simple gender binary thing like, you know, pink is for girls. It's not that at all. It's that, you know, people of all different genders find empowerment through embodying this very like fabulous pink glittery you know, performance or armor. And it's often like a conversation amongst each other about, you know, look at these nails, look at this adornment, look at, you know, look at me, see me, remember me, I'm shining. And so that is really where that employment of like the glitter and the pink comes from, both as like an armor and a weapon, and also, you know, something celebratory to kind of reflect back our own light when we need it.
I love that. My pink glitter armor.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that you and I have something really, really important in common, which is that we both share a deep love and respect for Hello Kitty.
Yeah.
I think that this is really important. I mean, literally, I grew up, part of my childhood was in Orange County in Southern California, and in the mall in Costa Mesa, there was a Hello Kitty store that was just like wall to wall Hello Kitty, and it was literally my sanctuary. It was my super happy place. And I would literally just, you know, when I was there, I couldn't be happier. And when I wasn't there, I'd be thinking about how I get back there. And it was about this world of the playfulness and joy and like simplicity, and something very sweet and kind to me about the Hello Kitty. But I'm curious how you got into it and what role it's played for you.
Yeah, you know, I think I too just always liked it. I always gravitated towards Hello Kitty when I was small. And I mean, for one thing, it's kind of like, it's this like perfect graphic design project for one thing. It always looks contemporary. Some people, you know, say, well, she doesn't have a mouth. That's like super problematic. And I'm like, well, you know, maybe she's done talking, you know,
Hey.
maybe she's just done talking. I think, you know, really my interest in Hello Kitty is that it's one of these things that people use to tell you about themselves, right? So, you know, for whatever reason, it's like people identify with Hello Kitty, and then they use this, you know, whether it's stickers on your binder, stickers on your car, your phone, like places that don't need to be adorned and personalized. For whatever reason, people want you to know about themselves and who they are, and feel a really strong connection to using Hello Kitty to do that. And so that just always like fascinates me, you know, what tools do we have to tell each other about ourselves and to make ourselves feel seen. And for whatever reason, you know, Hello Kitty does that. And she's so cute.
She's so cute. She's the cutest.
Wow, I just learned something totally brand new about my like homegirl and hand grenade. I did not know about this Hello Kitty thing, and now you will not be able to escape. Now that I know this, get ready for a lifetime of Hello Kitty. So I realized, speaking of Hello Kitty and sanctuary, I never knew that you found sanctuary inside the Hello Kitty stores. But now that you're not in Costa Mesa, tell us where you find sanctuary.
I find sanctuary in my friendships. My friendships are really, really, really important to me. And literally, there's nothing I would rather do than like FaceTime you after a tough day. Yes, so my friendships are incredibly important. And I would also say my yoga practice, especially now, because there's so much incoming and so much noise and so much to worry about. And yoga is just like, you just kind of wipe the slate, empty the cup, and just start again. And the idea that you can start again anytime, that's always within your power, is something that is sanctuary for me.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Tears. Well, for me, I am finding sanctuary always in my community. I told you already, I have a deep need for belly laughs, or I'm just like not a full person. And so where I get that is talking all the shit in the world with my homegirls and like getting it off my chest, right? So definitely that. I also am known to find sanctuary in books. And little is it known, if you couldn't find me as a kid, you could probably look in the bathroom and you would find me on the toilet with a book. So I love books. I love the smell of books. I love how they feel. I love libraries and the smell of libraries. And I also am, these days in quarantine, I'm finding sanctuary in new hair. So I'm finding sanctuary in this blonde. Tomorrow it might be red. The next day it might be short and black. Who knows? I'm just having fun and finding safety in change, actually, and really like deeply leaning into that. Sadie, I'm curious for you, who, by the way, I'm just gonna designate you as my new homie. My new Oakland homie who kicks butt in all these different ways. My question for you is, how do you find time? You're creating all the time. Your portfolio is robust. And when I was listening to your vast accomplishments, I was like, yo, but when do you find time to like sleep and eat and do all the amazing things that you do? How does that work?
Yeah, you know, I do make time, and I do make sure to try to be balanced. You know, I am not one of those people that thinks like the ends justify the means. I think actually like the means are just as important as the final result of anything. So I try to be really balanced in my work. I remember specifically for a big show that I did in 2018 with my LA gallery, Charlie James, I waited till the last minute, y'all. You know, it happens. I waited till the last minute, and then I had to work so fast and hard, and I had to make all these other people work really fast and hard. I had to beg the framers and the shippers to work with these crazy deadlines, and I just felt like it didn't feel like it was in integrity to me about how I wanted to move through the world. And so after that, I was like, you know, things can't be at the last minute, and it can't be this like crazy pace and speed. And, you know, in the art world, a lot of times people want to like work past regular hours. They want to, you know, just like, oh, let's just, you know, have everybody install super late tonight. And I just don't think that that is safe or healthy. And again, it goes back to like this, you know, labor politics, I'm sure, but I just feel like, you know, people need to take care of themselves. They need to be healthy. And so I definitely take breaks. I definitely, you know, ignore the inbox, and just, you know, I just like hanging out with my family. And I'm not like super needing to like run to every single art event. That's, you know, not really what feeds me. So honestly, you know, with things shutting down, it's kind of allowing me to be like my true hermit self that I, you know, have really just been in the studio, but also, yeah, reading books and looking at the garden and trying to take a deep breath and doing the Zoom yoga. Jen, I'm gonna have to find out which ones you're doing.
Oh, I got some good ones for you.
All right. Cool.
That is awesome. And speaking of books, given that we have two book lovers, Alicia,
Yeah.
coming out.
I do have a book coming out.
I've never been so excited for a book.
Oh,
it's going to be so amazing. Tell us about your book and
so
how people
about this. It's called The Purpose of Power, How We Come Together When We Fall Apart. It will be out October 20th of this year, 10/20/2020. And the book is literally a labor of love. It is a book that I wanted to write after the 2016 elections. After, you know, 3 and some change years of being in the midst of a complete hurricane and wishing for a compass. And, you know, it's the book that I wanted as a young activist who, you know, showed up at the Youth Empowerment Center one day in 2003, excuse me, and wanted to learn how to organize. And it's the book that I needed when I was knocking doors in East and West Oakland, trying to organize people to fight back against gentrification and displacement, and having people slam doors in my face and be like, you don't know what you're talking about. Some of this is going to be good for the community. And then reopening their door, right? And talking about the losses that they'd experienced and the way that they were terrified that their community was changing, and wanting to make sure that whatever changes were happening in the community were going to happen for the people who had been struggling through all of the things that weren't there before. This book is not for people who have been in it for a very long time, although I'm sure you will still find joy and lessons from it. It is a book that's for folk who are just showing up and saying, how do I make sense of all of this? So it's hard to do. Jen, you're an author and you know what it means to write a book. That thing was
epic.
It was a labor of love. It feels like the most adult thing I've done in my life. Like literally every word, every period, every semicolon, every arrangement of words, that's my art, right? So I hope you all cop it. You can get it everywhere you get your books. And special plug, especially if you're in the Bay, to get your books from Marcus Books. Tell them you want to order mine. And at the same time, because mine's not out until October, order Melissa Valentine's book, because it actually, pub date is today. The book just came out today. So shout out to my first time authors, and I'm in it with y'all.
I love it. I'm so excited about this book. It's such a big deal. Literally. It's the book that I wish I had too.
Ooh, ooh. Well, Ijan's in the book, so there's that. There's lots of good lessons about how we be our fullest selves, and also how we make room for people who are just showing up now. Even for some of us who have been in it for decades, right? Our job is to continue to grow and expand at every moment. The number of people who are willing to be a part of a project that can get us to be a little bit more free. So thank you for loving on it.
I love that. Was it Maurice that said that movements are about addition, not subtraction?
Oh, I like that.
Isn't that good?
I love that. I absolutely love that. And yeah, I think it was you who told me there has to be room for the waking amongst the woke, and that we cannot be content to be the God of small things. So I have taken that with me for so many years, and trust me, it has helped me in every situation.
That's awesome. All right, well, we are moving towards closing out our conversation, but I wanted to give us a chance to do a round of just helping folks, just meditating on this idea of what it looks like to bring the glitter and the sun to the storms of our times. And when we launched Sunstorm, we were like, it's stormy out here. And
that's the truth.
Had no idea what was coming.
That's the whole truth.
It is stormy. So how do we help people connect to the glitter and the sun and stay sunny?
Sadie, this is a great question for you to answer, my friend, especially because you're introducing glitter into my life. That is also something I'm going to be taking with me. So how do we help people connect to that?
You know, I think for me, one of the things that I've been trying to connect to in this particularly stormy moment, and this is the challenge, it's a challenge, it's a goal, is my own compassion, really. And so I just refuse, with so much hatred that is just, you know, seemingly feeding off of itself and crawling out from under the rugs, and really parading around these days. I just refuse to let that steal my capacity for compassion, because my compassion is mine, and it's not for anyone to, you know, to take away with like these insane displays of, you know, racism and vitriol. And so I'm just really trying to hold on to that compassion, even for those same people. And that is not always my first response, but I feel like it's a part of me, and it's what keeps me in the light, and what can, you know, keep me in that sunshine, regardless, because, you know, unfortunately we can't wait to win. We can't wait for, you know, liberation to be ourselves, and to be in love with ourselves, and with each other, and with our family. And we've never waited. So I think that love and that compassion is what I lean on, and, you know, what I bring on my good days.
Oh, I love that. And I love the idea of standing in the sun. It didn't start with Olivia Pope, right? But she popularized it. Thank you, Kerry Washington, for all of that. And shout out to my babe who just made a cameo in my video. But also, you know, Ijan, what words of advice do you have for people right now to stand in the sun? How do we wear the white hats in this moment when there are so many, I don't even know what to call them out there, girl. I don't know if it's like thunderstorms, lightning bolts. What do you think? How do we stand in the sun right now?
I think we take in a lot of art. I love what Sadie said about connecting to compassion, and I think that storytelling, art, and artists can help us connect to each other and to ourselves in ways that can keep us strong and keep us powerful and sustain us through really hard times. I also think about, with Sadie's art, the intergenerational context, and I think about my grandmother and the people who came before us, who lived through so much and have such incredible stories that we get to uncover and tell and draw strength from. So thinking about our elders and the people who came before, that's another thing I'm taking away from this conversation. And something about the way that Sadie is writing, Sadie, the way that you're writing yourself and your family story into history. I don't know why, but I thought about it. The imagery of acupuncture came to my mind, because what acupuncture does is it kind of taps in below the surface of the skin to energy that's there, that's healing. And it helps direct the energy just below the surface to heal you. And there's something about the way that you do storytelling and that rewriting or opening up of history that makes me feel like there's like, it's just below the surface and it's like channeling energy in a way that's really healing. So I'm gonna look to that to keep me glittery and sparkly and shiny. I'm feeling super inspired by that. What about you, Alicia?
Yeah, I am feeling super inspired too. And I think for me right now, standing in the sun means continuing to tell the truth, even when your voice shakes. I think I'm so moved, right, Sadie, by how clear your vision was earlier, right? You were like, I want to reorganize the economy, not just here, but all over the world. I want everybody to have enough. I don't want there to be scarcity. And I don't want somebody speaking for me. I want to speak for my damn self. I was like, yes, stand in the sun, right? And as somebody who, you know, is often in a position where I have to say what I think and what I mean, and know that there will be some pushback. I still think that that is what it means to stand in the sun. It's so freeing and so liberating to be clear about what it is that we actually want, to not try to like both sides it, but to like really say it with your chest. So that's kind of my motto this time around, is say it with your chest. That's how we stand in the sun. And that's how we take this country back. And that's how we transform how and who we be with each other.
I love that.
And you do that so well, let me just say, because I see you, you know, all over all these different outlets, and I'm like, they are going to ask the same question again. And somehow you are going to be super patient, super fierce, specific, and expansive. And I'm just like, I know you got this. I don't know how. I mean, it's just because you know what you are gifted at and you do it, but you do it so well.
Thank
so
you. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. Mutual love, mutual love.
We're getting some love in the Q&A box too. Thank you all so much for saying thank you. We're getting some nice love in the Q&A box, but we would love to get questions. We have a few more minutes in case anyone has questions for any of us. We want to hear what you're thinking, what you want to know about. So yeah, feel free to drop some questions in the Q&A box. And don't forget to go to sadiebarnette.com to see Sadie's amazing art and check out the pre-order of Alicia's book, The Purpose of Power. And what's the book that had the publication date today that Sadie's art is on?
The Names of All the Flowers, and it is by Melissa Valentine, who is an Oakland born and raised badass who currently resides on the other coast, but she'll be back.
I'm so jealous you all are in the same town. That's awesome.
I'm saying.
Could literally do a social distance walk around that lake, huh?
Yeah, that's exactly what needs to happen. Well, it looks like we're getting a lot of love in the chat. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And Sadie, thank you so much for always, always shining so brightly and shining your light on others. You are 100% the sun in the storm.
Yes. Thank you, Sadie. We love you. And thanks everybody for tuning in to Sunstorm Pod at CAAM. And check out this amazing show they have going on and this ongoing programming, which is so special and so worth our time. Thank you all so much.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Like I said, it's an honor. And, just want to say thank you to those who came before me, both on this land, in this profession as an artist, my ancestors and family, always for having my back. And I hope to continue this conversation with both of y'all for real.
Excellent. And sorry, I have to do the last plug. Sorry. So thank you to CAAM. Check out Sadie's work at CAAM. Check out Sadie on sadiebarnette.com. And if you have not already, subscribe to Sunstorm wherever you listen to your pods. Our new season is coming this fall, and we will be talking all about how we find our lane. So Sadie, thank you for being that inaugural conversation, and thanks to everybody who joined tonight.
Thank you all for such an invigorating and refreshing conversation. As a former librarian and archivist, I too love books and find them a place of respite, and of course the bits of visual creativity. One of the questions that popped up that I'm not sure if we saw, there was a question about artist collectives here in Los Angeles. And Sadie, I'm not sure if you can speak to that. I know you're in the Bay Area, but some people are just asking generally about art collective for women or men here in LA, and then maybe some resources for mothers raising young girls at this point in history, any advice to share. So I wanted to make sure that those things got highlighted before we completely closed out. And so I'll back off now and let you all tackle those two questions.
Yeah, well, maybe, one thing I can shout out that's going on in LA right now is also my homegirl and fellow artist, Lauren Halsey, who we were both at the Studio Museum residency together. And right now, during this, COVID pandemic, she has basically turned her community center, which is summeteverything.org, into like a full-on vegetable box distribution center. And she, through her artwork and through this community center, is feeding hundreds of families in South Central, where both of our families are from. So it's not exactly a collective, but I think like if folks wanted to think about, places to get involved or contribute, I would definitely say check out summeteverything.org.
Great.
Alrighty, thank you all again for joining. You all have a lovely evening. We look forward to welcome you all back to CAAM to see the work of Sadie Barnette and the other artists in Sanctuary when it's safe and healthy for us all to reopen. In the meantime, we hope you find your bit of sanctuary in whatever way possible and whatever feels best to you. So everybody have a great night. Thank you to you all for joining us.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.